Hi everyone. I'm going to talk about my predictions for the week of February 11th. I'm posting them a day late. I was busy and so I'll have to be a day late, but nevertheless, there's still more fun left in the week. So first, let's quickly recap my predictions for the previous week. And as far as the specific up and down directions for the market, I was actually wrong 4 out of 5 days. So only the Friday prediction, I believe it was down, was correct. However, I did predict correctly that there would be a direction switch between Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday and Friday. My prediction was that on Monday and Tuesday there would be concerns about sort of renegotiations between China and US and the market would go down. However, those concerns surfaced more towards the middle of the week rather than earlier in the week. As far as the actual events, say, for example, weather, I was predicting that there would be weather or just accidents. I was predicting increased probability of accidents that involve either some sudden problems with electricity or some explosions, fires, etc. So just to kind of quickly go through the news for that week, I do see that there were some unexpected, I guess, explosions. Let's see what I had that. In, I believe, San Francisco, where they required evacuation of large areas. Of course, no longer see where it is. Okay, so there was a explosion in San Francisco, gas explosion that triggered mass evacuation and triggered a major blaze. And there were also some events, I believe it was in Atlanta, 10 underground electrical explosions and smoke in Atlanta, Georgia. So things of that nature. Obviously not necessarily on a global scale, but events, at least in the US, that are of note. And then we also, as far as the events that relate to businesses, that again have to do with, I had a prediction that businesses that have to do with online sales or transportation, that there will be some developments that will help them to improve, I guess, their functionality. And I do see the news about Amazon investing in a driverless startup, Aurora, and that will include the tech for cars, trucks, and drones. So nothing sort of immediate that would necessarily immediately expedite processing of their sales, immediately within the next, week or two. However, it kind of shows sort of a general direction of improving their, I guess, logistics as far as delivering at least products to the customers. I thought I had something else here. Too many things going on. So let's see. And then something that I wanted to mention in general. Oh yeah, so there was another prediction that I had that had to do with kind of announcements that relate to military, either military contracts or sales, or sort of sudden military campaigns, or announcements, again, that relate to military or weapons. Interesting news that I saw had to do with a sort of unexpected drill involving many black helicopters in Los Angeles that I believe occurred on February 5th. So that was interesting, kind of a surprising occurrence. Again, not necessarily affecting the stock market, but something that was kind of shown in astrology, but was otherwise not necessarily expected by general population. And let's see. And something else I wanted to mention as far as a general trend, more so for January rather than necessarily for past week, is that sort of how did the Jupiter-Neptune square play itself out. We did have, on the one hand, as far as weather is concerned, of course, Neptune has to do with snow, floods, water, etc. And we did have an abundance of kind of news about major snowstorms, really major floods in Australia and New Zealand, and in many other countries where there was, some sort of a mudslides due to heavy rains, and it was pretty much on throughout January. And the reason that it is important to note is that this aspect between Neptune and Jupiter, the square, has to do with things kind of happening unpredictably, but also in a sort of a tense manner where on the one hand you can have drought, and then you can have sudden flood. And I believe there was actually a situation, I believe it was in Atacama Desert, where there was really, as obviously it's a desert, and world's driest place in northern Chile, and then in early February 2nd, there suddenly was a massive flooding. So things of that nature, where things kind of shift from there things being very dry, or there being fires, to sudden flooding, or vice versa, that suddenly, may either flooding suddenly changes and the place becomes dry and prone to fires, or there is some sort of imbalance of water where one place, like New Zealand, may be experiencing some major fires, and Northern Australia is experiencing major floods. So something, that's in similar geographic area, you may have really sort of a dramatic contrast as far as weather in terms of, fire and water being imbalanced. So the reason it's important to note what has kind of, or take a note, I guess, of what was happening as far as weather is concerned in January, is that we can expect a repetition of similar weather patterns in June, and then subsequently in September of 2019. So again, we can expect really massive flooding, then, depending, of course, where you are in the world, snowstorms, just basically an abundance of water in, whatever the form it comes in. However, it might be coming at either the point where you would either not expect it, or in sort of amounts where there's nothing and suddenly you have a lot of it, or then it disappears and you have drought where really you actually need water. So things of that nature. And indeed, June looks like a very tense month as far as like potential for major disasters, cyclones, typhoons, earthquakes, and whatnot. So they may be accompanied by, say, tsunamis, etc. So I would definitely keep an eye on, as far as, especially if people plan vacationing in places that are prone to such, such weather patterns. Then another thing to note, and that's more specific for the stock market or for investors, is that Jupiter and Neptune in general, their interaction has to do with things like, of course, chemicals, oil, gas, pharmaceuticals. So things that may have been occurring kind of in January, we may again experience repetition in June and September, such that in June the issue may be kind of revisited internally, or say there's a sale that's considered, of some company, or acquisition that's considered in January, may be revisited again, or discussed, reevaluated in June, and then finalized in September. Similarly, the patterns that we had for, say, oil prices in January, we may see not necessarily the repeat of the exact same pattern, but rather issues that have influenced that pattern. So, for example, we had, OPEC cut production in December, versus in 2018, when we had Jupiter trining Neptune, which is actually a positive, supportive aspect. We had a really increase of production, especially in the U.S., reaching one of the peaks, I guess, in production. However, then once that supportive trine between Jupiter and Neptune had been dissipating, that production, there was a decision, at least among OPEC countries, to cut that. Then there were some involuntary production cuts in countries like Libya, Iran, and Venezuela. And so that kind of led to sort of, I wouldn't say shortages, but rather a decrease, at least availability, or reduced production in January. And obviously some oil prices have went up. So again, similar considerations can come up again in June and September. and June maybe more sort of internal evaluation or preparation for something, and September some sort of resolution, so maybe discussion of perhaps sanctions in June, and or some sort of preparation or discussions whether or not to resume some sort of a production that was maybe delayed or suspended. And then September is when the decision will be made, and again decision will likely be sort of such that again there might be an imbalance, so some countries may go one way and other countries will go other way, or there will be a lot of international pressure because Jupiter has to do with sort of international community laws and long distance shipment. However, it will be in the tense aspect to Neptune, indicating that there will be disruptions in shipments, disruptions in long distance transportation, disruptions in sort of legalizing sales or trade or expansion of oil industry. So there will be some disruptions. And again, I would imagine, without considering anything else, that oil prices therefore may go up. However, obviously without considering any other important sort of nuanced influences, we may not necessarily say there's a one-to-one correlation. However, something to keep in mind. So for this week, I need to bring up my predictions that I set to myself. So for general weekly kind of global influences, we have Mars will be conjuncting Uranus in Aries this week for pretty much all of the week. And that would be an influence that can coincide with multiple things. On the negative side, it can bring increased number of accidents, especially that have to do with airplanes, electric cars, engines, anything that moves via air, fast. Fires can explode, especially electric fires, or some sort of a fast, communication, fast speed communication, can be shut down or experience some disruptions due to, again, fires, overheating. Telecommunication companies may experience problems, or again, companies that provide some sort of internet services may experience problems, or some social media companies, as well as sort of just, like I said, airplanes, cars, especially electric cars, or companies that say provide electricity or have some sort of sell electronics, electric gadgets, but again, more that have to do with either engines or say military, so maybe high-tech equipment of some sort. So there may be some, on the negative side, there may be disruptions, but then also there may be inventions where, if those two things come together positively, there may be announcements about really cool innovative technology, new even weapons, or some military contracts. At the same time, there may also be announcements about some new sort of campaigns, and there may be, because of Uranus, there would be revolutions, because again, Uranus rules revolutions, so violent revolutions, Mars and Uranus, or new kind of a military leader, new military, tactic, or some sort of a new military, strategy, plan, I wouldn't say invasion, but some sort of a new, I guess, some troops going somewhere to a new place. And with Uranus, it would be sudden, would be unexpected, would be surprising, or it could be, again, they're pulled out unexpectedly. So sudden, surprising change of events, of leadership, of weapons, and weapons may suddenly break, or there may be a breakthrough such that new weapons are announced or delivered, or there may be some, interesting invention that, all these areas that I just mentioned can benefit from. And so, let's see, so there may be problems with connectivity, or there may be some new device that, enhances connectivity, especially, for the internet. If there is indeed some sort of a new military campaign, for example, is announced, that especially towards, say, middle of the week, is a possibility that this is going to be the beginning of something that will last about 2 years. So if indeed we hear about some sort of announcement of that sort, or some project that again relates to military or electricity, and again more so military, it may be something that will last for the next couple of years. Then the other prediction was about Ginsburg. I haven't heard really anything, nor was I really thoroughly following up. Again, my sort of prediction stands that February 2019 is not a very great time for her as far as just her health. She may feel under the weather at least, and be at least, busy. So it's just a lot of kind of stressful aspects in her chart. And then if she remains in the office, or I'm not sure if it is the proper way of saying it, but if she remains in her position through February of 2019, then unfortunately for her, May and June of 2019 again look really stressful. So at the very minimum, I would advise, for her to just kind of take good care of her health. So let's see. So as far as specific dates and market moves, as I said, I'm posting it this late, so we already know that Monday, the February 11th, was a little bit of a mixed day. However, my prediction was that it will go up, and I guess Nasdaq, I think, was up. S&P was a little bit up. Dow Jones was down. So a mixed day, not necessarily a big move. I don't expect this week to show big moves in the first place, but nevertheless, let's proceed. So also for the US, for Monday specifically, I was expecting some positive news, maybe minor positive news about the workforce, healthcare, government contracts, or government-supported services. So maybe the funds are promised. Again, I haven't seen, from just briefly scanning sort of the news, I haven't seen any announcements of that sort. As usual, there may be some things going on that I'm just not aware of. And again, I'm not focusing on it very thoroughly. I just do a very kind of a brief scan of news, looking just for really major developments. For Tuesday, February 12th, my prediction, again, is 60% probability that the market will go up. Again, not super sure of it. It's just there's nothing really major, negatively impacting things globally or for the US chart or for China chart. Therefore, I think it's mostly will be up. However, there also may be some minor positive news for the US on February 12th and 13th about either international negotiations, foreign partnerships, immigration, long-distance travel and shipments, such that maybe the negotiations are going well, at least they're moving forward, that parties are engaged, and things are being considered and discussed. So based on these positive news, things may go up on Tuesday. Market may go up on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday and Thursday, I think, actually on Friday as well, there's a slight possibility, I would say, again, 55%, so just very kind of a slight probability towards the market going down for the rest of the week, so Wednesday through Friday. And that's because of minor kind of a problematic tense aspects, not so much globally, but to US charts. So, for example, there may be potential problems with communication and transportation businesses. That's actually globally. So there may be some miscommunication, poor organization, some details are missed. Somebody didn't communicate something to somebody else. Again, this may be more of like a influence that affects only Wednesday, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be a major issue. However, in the absence of kind of a really major aspects aside from the Mars, conjoining Uranus this week and ongoing square, between Jupiter, Neptune, and conjunction between Saturn and Pluto, this will be something that would kind of highlight events for the day. So again, Wednesday, February 13th, focus on communication and transportation businesses with potentially minor problems or some delays, or maybe there's an agreement that is being discussed, but somebody makes kind of a wrong move as far as saying something, based on some emotion, and that may delay the sale. Or maybe the sale is made, but it's made for kind of a wrong reason, such that, again, it's an emotional decision based on maybe some trend or something that somebody hasn't really thought through, and ultimately it may not be a very good move, in a sense of business actually being profitable. So some acquisition of some company based on, kind of a hype rather than actual, logical evaluation, or at least insufficient sort of evaluation of whether it's a good decision or not. Again, some disruption in transportation communication or confusion. Say maybe there's poor sales, but it may actually not be true, but because, again, the confusing news kind of was reported, and or There may also be increased news that relate to all things Neptunian, such as pharmaceuticals, religion, water, oil, drugs, chemicals, poisons. So either, like I said, increased news related to that. So for example, oil, or news themselves may be confusing, and therefore they may lead to confusion, and sales may not be completed or delayed because, again, the facts are not clear, or somebody is acting under sort of illusion of something as opposed to kind of dealing with real facts. So probably not the best date for entering into really serious deals, because some more at least important to read any contracts and details and fine print carefully. So on Thursday, continuing sort of focus on, again, on not just the small scale, on pharmaceuticals, chemicals, oil, water, news about the weather, as well as religion, drugs. So any sort of, all these cannabis companies as well, any addictive substances. So again, there may be some minor negative news such that, the sales are lower than expected, or maybe have sort of supplies that are sitting there because you cannot transport them somewhere. That could be because of poor weather, or because of poor planning, or maybe you have enough, sort of sources of, transporting your or transporting the products, but maybe they can't be produced fast enough, or they weren't delivered on time. So there is just some sort of a miscommunication or miscalculation as far as that is concerned, and therefore, those minor kind of negative, confusing news may affect specifically these areas that I just mentioned, and market may go down based on those news. So let's see. So then on Friday, I have prediction again about the market going down, 55% probability. But there also, like I said, all week there may be a sort of news about the new initiatives related to military, but specifically on February 15th, that probability is the highest, and it could be some sort of a announcement of a new military leader, new campaign, new weapon, and if there's indeed a new project, like I said, some deployment of troops somewhere, or even the withdrawal, it may continue for next 2 years until it's actually concluded. So it may start suddenly, but then actually become a longer project. In the US specifically, there may be increased news about gold and silver, especially gold. Their price may potentially go up. And then I also made predictions, and that's all on my blog at tolstunka.com, which I did post on time because it's a little bit easier, obviously, to post things in writing. So I also written about February 16th through 18th, which is weekend and Monday. US markets will be off due to holidays, but some other markets may be open, and in general it's worth noting that these dates may be somewhat significant and affect market moves next week. And in particularly, there may be concerns about, and of course we know that this is also going to be, I guess, a renegotiation in the US about opening, or rather funding government, and there definitely will be some concerns about the funding. So we will have Saturn conjuncting Venus in Capricorn. So government restriction on finance, on cash. So concerns about availability of cash. So investors may, pull out their money because they may be concerned about whether or not their money is safe. It's just kind of a more of a aspect of sort of realism and concern. Feeling kind of frugal about your money, and I guess as far as negotiations are concerned, companies will be less likely to kind of spend wildly. They will be very careful about spending, or restricting the spending, as well as the news may be that profits are either down or there's not enough investment, and basically concerns about cash, concerns about earnings, concerns about funding, availability of funds, or releasing the funds. Again, Saturn likes to control things and not release things, especially when it comes to government. Again, authorities will be kind of reviewing finances very thoroughly. And in addition, so obviously I don't know what it means specifically for government shutdown in the United States. At least I didn't, look for and the aspects for that specifically, but there definitely will be concerns about that, and it's possible that things will not get authorized. And that kind of, in addition to this whole aspect of February 15th, that may indicate some sort of new military campaigns or campaigns that involve just military or militarized forces. Again, it could be, of course, a sports-related project as well. It's possible that there will be sort of no authorization of funds, and indeed there will be some project. Doesn't necessarily have to be that, you know, the wall is authorized in the US, but rather it could be just that it's some, you know, military presence at the border is increased, something of that nature, and that lasts for 2 years somehow. So also on the 18th, which is next Monday, 18th of February 2019, there may be increased news again about oil, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, chemicals, and religion, music, video, like video equipment or actual movies, profits from those, even poisoning, you know, problems with, say, water supplies being poisoned or through chemicals, etc. So there may either be, and news most likely will be somewhat negative, so confusion about, you know, sales in those of those products or related, you know, businesses, or maybe problems with transporting those products or delivering the services related to those areas. There may be also news about a particular individual from those areas, so any sort of leader, such as a famous person, maybe a famous actor of some sort, or musician, or maybe a famous swimmer even, and perhaps that person maybe announced that they won an award or they received recognition. You know, could be positive, or it could be that they're recognized for something that they've done that maybe is confusing to others and nobody kind of expected them to do it, or maybe say they were arrested for DUI, or they came out with some addiction or having some sort of a illness, you know, mental illness, or maybe for really amazing creative talent. So it could be kind of a positive or negative recognition, but it could be directed, you know, like I said, at a very specific person that's from, you know, movie industry or from some other arts kind of background. So I don't really have anything else. I'm thinking this was long enough, and so overall not a super eventful week, except for potential for some accidents, airspace, and potential, you know, either military campaigns or the beginning of some project. Again, could be just an invention of some great, wonderful, you know, engine for an electric car or something of that nature. So things are always there's always potential for sort of positive and negative manifestation of the same aspect. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next week. Okay, bye.